Hi, I'm Kevin Tusky, and I'm the Director of Design at SingleStone. I'd like to introduce you to Sugar, our sweet new open source design system. And I know what you're thinking, not another design system. Well, we think there's room for one more. Over the years, SingleStone designers and developers have used lots of different design systems on our projects. And here's the problem we found with many of them. Too many only work well with a single front-end framework. Too many rely on bloated HTML instead of using proper, lean, semantic HTML. Too many don't prioritize core accessibility features. And too many don't look good enough. And that's why we created Sugar. It helps you quickly build experiences that are three things: beautiful, flexible, and accessible. So let me show you how easy and powerful Sugar is to use.
All right, so let's get into it. What you're looking at on the left is Microsoft VS Code. And on the right, we have a web browser, and I've selected Google Chrome to be there. Now, what code do we have? We're looking at an index.html file. We don't really have a whole lot so far. We've got a pretty crisp head of our HTML, and we have a reference to where the Sugar CSS will be generated. And then other than that, we really just have an empty body. So what we're gonna do is we're going to build a sign-in screen, all using Sugar and a little bit of Tailwind CSS classes. And the first thing to start with is a form, because a sign-in form is just that. We need to actually use a proper HTML form. So that's what we'll do. We'll put our form code in there, our HTML, and we'll save. You can see, boy, it sure doesn't look like much over there. But let's focus on the HTML and see what we do have, because we really already have the spine of accessible sign-in screen here just with our HTML, because we've chosen semantic elements here. So we have an H1 here. We are going to indicate the logo or the brand name of the sign-in screen. So we've got a place for that. And then we have our form. So we have a form, within that a field set, and then we have two text inputs and a button. So this first text input is actually two items. It's an input. That's where you do the typing of the text. And above that, it's a label to indicate what that text input is for. We don't want to rely on just the placeholder text. This is for username. Now we have pretty much the same thing for password below that. So we have both the text input, where my cursor is now, and then the label for that password text input as well. Below that, we have the button. That's what the user will click when they've input both a username and password. And just to remind you, this is not going to be an operating, working sign-in screen, but it's going to be all the wonderful cosmetics of that, which sometimes is the hard part. I'm sure you're anxious to see the Sugar classes in action, but before we do that, we're going to replace this H1 SingleStone with an H1 that includes SVG code. So I just pasted that there. So we're still seeing the SingleStone text and then all the SVG artwork come in. That's our official brand logo. We don't really want to look at that much anymore, because the SVG code is kind of pushing everything down. So I'm just going to collapse that. Well, now it's time to install Sugar. We need that in order to leverage the utility classes it provides. So here's how we do it. We're going to open up our terminal, and we're going to do an npm installation, node package manager. So npm install, we'll make sure it's logged as a dependency, at SingleStone's/Sugar. One more thing we have to do is we have to add the plugin to our Tailwind config. So let me open up our Explorer over here, go to the Tailwind config, and let's just type that in there. So we're typing require at SingleStone.Sugar and Sugar core plugin. So it's now ready to roll. So right away, as soon as I finished registering that plugin, you notice a slight difference over here on the browser, because what it's done is it's consumed the Tailwind CSS reset. So everything else is kind of like more normalized now. Still doesn't look great, but it's sort of, it is a bit of a hello world that this is now communicating. So now we can actually close the Explorer. We're going to go back over to, I'm even going to get rid of that Tailwind config for a second. And now we're just going to be looking at our HTML, because this is where we're going to be for a while. So the first class we'll put on this button down here. So let's start typing class. And I can just start typing Sugar. And what's cool is this is registered through the IntelliSense that I have listening for all the Tailwind CSS attributes. And Sugar gets to hop on that bandwagon too. So we can just select Sugar button primary. That's what we want it to be. As soon as I click save, you'll see, oh wow. Okay, so it used to be just text on a white background. Now we've made a lot of opinions that you're starting to see now in the Sugar button over here. I've got a hover state, there's a background color, the typeface changed, if anyone noticed that the font family changed. And so that's what we'll do on our other attributes as well. So in the inputs, we'll do the same thing. So we're gonna go class sugar text input. There it is, as soon as we save. Ah, wow, okay. Chunky text input. We'll just copy this same class and stick it on the other one. All right, looking good. So believe it or not, what you've just seen is the extent of sugar so far. Now I know our page doesn't look like much, but we have at this point decided to have sugar contain the behavior of the discrete UI elements like a text input, like a button. You can see some of that goodness coming through. For the things that already exist in Tailwind, we decided not to recreate or reinvent those, but we actually just leverage the existing ones. We think they're pretty strong. So let's tidy this up with some Tailwind CSS utility classes and show into a nice package. We actually have chosen not to display username and password the labels, so let's do a class on them, a Tailwind class. We're gonna do SR only. So we only want screen readers to see those. So that's the same class that will apply to the other text label. Still in the DOM, still there for screen readers, but just not gonna render in our UI. Still looks crummy. Trust me, when we're done with this, it'll look slick. We're also gonna put that on the span here for SingleStone. So let's put some utility classes on the body to achieve this sign-in screen that we want. So I'm gonna paste that there. Ooh, it's dark. So let me show you what's happening here. So one of the big selling points of using Sugar is we fully embrace this idea of a single accent color. Now there's ways to add more colors beyond that, but you notice we're not saying that this is blue and it renders as blue, but it's an accent color with a particular darkness that matches the same scale of Tailwind CSS. The default is this blue, but we'll show how you can override that accent color in one place, and then you will get the benefits of having all of the functionality and cosmetic kind of ripple through. I won't show you that now because when that's totally activated, you can better see some of like the animated focus states that we've built in here to have terrific accessibility for Sugar. So our page isn't looking great yet. So what we need to do is add a div container element around everything in the body that's a part of the sign-in screen. So let me go ahead and add that. And we're gonna put the close underneath the end of the form. Oh, be quiet, it'll settle down. Ah, see, now we're starting to get somewhere. So this actually is a container that's got some of this responsiveness built into it along with Tailwind CSS. So you only begin to see this box at a certain breakpoint. So if this was on mobile, you actually wouldn't see much of this blue background. That's what some of these prefixes with the colons are. This is all Tailwind CSS. This is not exclusive to Sugar. But why recreate something if it's already pretty darn great? So we're actually pretty close to being done with our form. What we're gonna do is some spacing and padding, and so we're gonna start here with adding some of that to the H1 to space it out. Now, the reason we haven't baked that into each of the atomic elements is I've just seen this movie before, and I've seen it go bad in many other design systems. There's too much conflict. There has to be an awareness of the atomic or molecular elements outside of that UI element. So we've just not done it in Sugar. Let's refine the spacing on the button as well. So we've already got our class, so we'll put those inside here. So we've told it to be, not only are we handling spacing, but also things like flexbox or the width of items is all just leveraging existing Tailwind CSS. So we've told this to be full width, and then we've got some margin bottom. So these text inputs are too close, so let's refine that. Make sure they're full width. And then we'll do a slightly increased margin bottom for right before that button. So look at that, we got quite a good looking sign-in screen here. I told you that I wanted to show you some of the accessibility features in Sugar, and now you can kind of see them on better display. So if I make sure that the Chrome window is active, when I hit Tab, I'm now navigating the experience using my keyboard. I'm not using my mouse. You see this really nice animated focus state. Puts the cursor in the right place, and it's very clear to the user like what is in focus. And we extend that not just to the text inputs, but to the buttons as well. And so a lot of great accessibility features built into every interactive component of Sugar. Of course, there's a hover state and also a mouse down state here. So all that's been accounted for. Let's see how we did with our Lighthouse score. So let's go over here, get our developer tools, and do a lighthouse report. All right, straight hundreds. The SEO ding that we've got here is only because we didn't put a meta description in there. And that's just something we wanted to make sure that the code was a little shorter for you to read. What's also cool here too is you can also see the mobile view here. So the blue background goes away, everything kind of bleeds to the corner as much as possible with some healthy padding on the left and right. So a responsive sign-in screen with Sugar, fully accessible. All we really had to do is make sure our HTML was tight, then install Sugar, call with the proper utility classes, and then polish that with some Tailwind CSS classes afterwards. You didn't have to use Tailwind after the fact. You could have used your own CSS, whether it's inline, utility classes of another framework, or an external CSS. All of those play nice with the Sugar system. We do want to show you how to change the accent color if blue is not your color or not a part of your brand palette. So let's show how to do that. Let me get out of our developer tools here, revert. So you just need to change the Tailwind config. We'll go over there. And here's how you go about doing this. So we're going to add a new line here. We're going to reference the color palette of Tailwind colors. And then in this extension here, we're going to extend the color palette and set the accent to something else. We're going to set this as Emerald. And as soon as we do that, Emerald happens to be the name of one of the more than 20 colors that are in Tailwind CSS, of which there are 10 shades or tints within the colors. So you do the math, it's hundreds of colors. We chose Emerald to show how that ripples through, and notice how the background color here is a little bit darker than the button here. And what's cool about that is even our animated focus states ripple through as well. So everything just looks like a nice branded cohesive experience. So that's about everything we wanted to show you with Sugar today. This is just the beginning, but we're all hard at work on all the other variations on buttons. We're going to be working on selects and everything else under the sun. This is open source. We would love to accept contributions and merge requests. So this is all on our public GitHub repo for Sugar. Please participate. We hope to keep growing this for the community to use, and we know that SingleStone will be using it too.